blood pressure. Why? Because the nervous system has uplifted its sensitivity to protect you. At this point in the game, this is where I will talk about PRI patterns. I will say another protective mechanism that occurs is because based on the way your brain is wired and the way your internal anatomy is built, you're going to bias your right side a bit more because that's stronger. And an adaptation of that can occur over time is I might tense up my big, strong back muscles because that holds me upright. And that's about the extent that I go into it. From that point on there, we have to say, okay, what are we going to do about this? I get it. 3 keys you need to reduce nervous system sensitivity: movement, space, and blood flow. When I'm in the pattern, all of that is reduced because I have reduced strategies, I have reduced mobility at multiple joints. So it's going to keep the nervous system sensitized. So I get a decrease there. Okay? What I have to do is increase it. And so I will go into movement, space, and blood flow, reducing system sensitivity. How do we do that? Well, remember, you're going to bias your right side and tense up your big, strong back muscles when you're under threat. We're going to do the exact opposite of that and get you nice breathing, nice and easy in that position so you get used to it. That calms the nervous system down, reduces your sense of threat, and then we'll teach you how to go back the other way. What else will I do? I'll talk about space. That's our range of motion testing. So that's when you can kind of show that, look, you're limited here. That's reduced space. If I squeeze your arm, what's going to happen to your nerves? Well, you're going to start getting numbness, tingling, all that. Losing shoulder IR is the same exact thing. Okay? And then blood flow would just be us increasing them moving because you're not going to generally move as much when you're in pain or whatever. Oh. So, to kind of conclude my talk, the big key points I hope you guys got from the things that I've suggested is pain is one possible output in response to threat. The big key, and I think what's going to continue to increase as time goes on, is we're going to be talking a lot more about threat and stress than we are pain, because to me that is just one way to combat that. We want to give non-threatening stimuli, not just our interventions, but also the way we talk to someone and the way we educate someone to provide the ideal healing environment. And this is huge. What we say matters, all right? Words can have a huge impact on the individuals you work with for a long period of time. And then I got this email from a patient a few weeks ago, and here's what she said. You rock. The only ones I remember, because I did them all, her exercises at the time, was walking with the weight on one side of the camel. I'll add these today. I'm back at the gym already doing most things, so I didn't have to start all over this, and it was a short-term pain thing, because she had a reoccurrence in pain from twerking. No joke. Like, okay, that's why I don't twerk. But here's the big thing. I have to tell you.
What's twerking? I don't even know what twerking is.
I am not.
I'll show you later.
You're not missing anything.
Zach, as a favor to me, could you show her? As a favor to me.
Tonight at drinks. Tonight at drinks.
You're looking good. Why don't you show her? Take your shirt off.
Rock a little twerk, brother.
But the highlighted piece.
Did I get that right?
And it was lost. We're almost there. We're at the final stretch. The highlighted piece. I have to tell you the two things I took away that are most helpful, besides all four belly, was that you aren't re-injuring, it's your nervous system telling you danger, and knock on the door of the pain. So helpful. I spent so much time teaching her about PRI and taking her through the entire program, but these are the big two things that she took away. So it's not that that wasn't helpful, it was extremely helpful because that's what got her out of her pain experience. But this here makes her anti-fragile if she's in pain again. This here keeps her out of my clinic, which is probably not good because then I'll lose the job. But this is what we want for all of our people. We want people to not be afraid and people to take charge for themselves, to get themselves better. We want independence. If you want to learn more about this stuff, these are some of the resources that I recommend. I will say, because I'm hearing less about pain nowadays, also Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. If you haven't read that, please do so, because that encompasses all of these. Another good book. Do you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, or complaints? Yes, Karen.
I think it's a really great topic, and I think it's one of those things like anatomy. It's like the universe. You just can never actually learn enough. And I'm always trying to get my language to be more therapeutic, and I could always get better. But one of the things that was sort of recently that I've been doing with my language in the treatment setting, which is just a fantastic topic for today, is when I was doing my PRI tests, I would call them tests. And I realized that some of the people I was talking to were nervous about tests. So I've tried to change my language to, we're going to do some measures to see where you're at right now, and that's going to help us guide, our session together. But I'm trying to stop using the word test, and I am failing miserably. I keep saying test, but I'm getting better. But I'm just saying, it's like that's an example of how you can use your words to just take that edge. I'm going to give you a test because you walked in here, and I've had people. I had a lawyer that I was treating, and she just really, she just couldn't stop herself. And I was so grateful because she actually said test, and I put it out to me. So now I'm trying to say measures.
Yeah.
Like, what do you say? PRI test. PRI test. Snapshot. That's a good one.
That's good.
Snapshot's a really good one. I like that.
I just want to check a few things.
Yeah.
that's what I
Or just take a look at how you
Let
move.
me check and see where you're at today. Check and see where you're at.
Just to see where you
There
move.
you go. There you go. All right, you guys are way ahead of me.
I firmly agree. I've done some studying with Adrian Lowe too, and our words are so powerful, and it ties in so well with what we learned earlier this weekend in terms of just, the whole anti-threatening environment and calming people down, and even the meditation talk that Tracy did. And just even talking about the different personality types, I think is also really powerful because I got myself in trouble early on in my PRI education, really focusing in on, helping somebody understand the importance of neutrality. And so I had some of my personality types who were very OCD who got completely attached to, am I neutral? Am I neutral? And then not being neutral became a dysfunction to them, or then, not testing at least a 3 out of 5 was, and so the words that I thought were fairly innocuous related to PRI then becomes threatening in their eyes, or becomes the thing that they obsess about, and then that kind of replaced their pain, was their belief of where they were at, what the test results were. And so I've been also kind of going through this evolution of how do I represent this, and just bringing it down even more, because with those personality types, they do kind of attach to that, and then that becomes their goal and their determination about whether or not they're doing any better, or if they're okay.
Hey, Zach, I have a comment on that. We use the word assess, by the way, or we never use the word test. If everybody's come in, we only say assess. There are two things that I think really, nice job, Zach. 2 things. His emotion will cue the emotion of the individual around you. If you come in with high sound and high sight and high ear, you're gonna have a high experience. If you come with a low voice, modulation, and you don't go fast, so speed and sound, critical. We are really a overzealous group. And I think we all have to remember that when we walk in. You walk in that room, and I can tell you, we are going as slow as we can go. So speed, sound, we use the word assess. So I thought you did a great job. That's all called modulation. Behavior is all about modulation.
I'm going to add to your reference, I don't think it's on here. It's a great reference. It's called Words That Harm, Words That
Yeah.
Heal.
You don't have it?
I have it. I'm happy to send it to you. It's not on here. But thank you to the author.
Where's that harm? Where's that harm?
And one other thing I do want to say, I think what is hugely threatening is innovating. And people come in and say, look, I have all these awful things in my low back. So I say that very thing, congratulations, you're a normal human being, these are normal degenerative changes. And when they hear that, they just really? So,
Yeah.
Start out your assessment with those words. Start out the assessment by telling them how good they really look, how well they're really doing, how normal they really are, how awesome things are going for. Don't let the negativity.
I also think you have to recognize, and you have to appreciate, you can't negate
what they're saying, like, but I have a disc in my back, because that's all they're hearing about, so you have to say, this is a normal, these are normal things that are gonna happen to everybody. I realize you have this, you know, thing that happen to you, but you just have to appreciate, yeah.
The disc was never the problem, so refocus. It's not the disc,
Right.
so refocus.
So you just have to acknowledge to them, because that's what they think is their big problem. So if you acknowledge it at first, and then explain why you're still feeling the pain.
I often ask the question, what do you feel like you have the most control of? And then that's where you go. You give them the opportunity to say positive about how they need control. That's the only way you're gonna modulate that, this issue. Give them something they already have to control that pain. Because it's a dismal state for them. So I think it's excellent. Wow, it's excellent. Yeah.
Have you seen any research that kind of points out what clinicians' own empathy towards themselves and how they perceive threat of being successful with that patient and how that impacts? Because if you're really hard on yourself as a clinician and you fear that you're not going to help this patient, that obviously would flow into your interaction with your patient. Have you seen any research?
I haven't seen any research, but I mean, I would agree with you. That's huge, and that's just the whole interaction thing. That's the vibe you give to someone. They're going to feed off on that, and I mean, that right there probably supersedes any other intervention that you're going to provide to that patient. You know, because if it's your mentality that's keeping them in a heightened or threatened state, I mean, you could try every technique there is in the book, but you may not get what you're looking for. But in terms of seeing research, I haven't explored that yet.
Yeah, because I'm looking a little more firmly into that, because I think as providers we need to have our own personal practices that create more empathy for ourselves, because we have to have empathy for ourselves in order to give it to our patients.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just one more comment on that. The most successful fisherman is the one that can get in the boat without moving the boat. So when you walk into a room that's a boat, remember that boat's full. And if you can get in that room and there's no waves, there's no ripples, you're gonna catch a lot of fish. But if you get in that boat and that boat starts moving because of attitude, disposition, you don't know who's in the room, that boat's gonna start to move. And those waves and ripples make it real difficult to catch fish. So the best fisherman knows how to get in a boat with other people in the boat, without rippling that boat. Try getting in a boat without moving the boat. You really have to understand what's going on around you, who's sitting where, what position are they in, where do you balance, how do you enter. I'm not trying to be spiritual, but that's the best way to approach pain.
I enjoyed that, Zach. Thanks for doing that. I have two questions. One,
Yep.
you had some awesome references here. They're like a top 3 you could point us to that we could read.
I don't know. I just made them all up, so I don't even know.
Butler's explain pain book.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back,
It's a patient reference.
yes, and
It's
as much as I love that, I like that better.
Why do I
Which one?
It's why do I hurt?
If you don't want to read a textbook, this one's it's so manageable, and it really does cover everything in a sensitive nervous system.
Yeah, I would say like out of these, why do I hurt and explain pain are the most patient friendly. This right here is also very easy to read, but it's a little bit more in depth than the others. Therapeutic Neuroscience Education, very good book. This, you're starting to get into more how the nervous system works, the sensitive nervous system. It is a very good book, though. And then the topical issues in pain series, that's very, very high level, but also very well written. And I think Gifford came out with a few new books as well fairly recently that I've also heard good things. We just haven't read them yet. So I'd say anything on these pages is good. In terms of the articles, I think anything by Lorimer Mosley is going to be pretty. He's a smart guy, and he's doing a lot of research with some crazy stuff.
Louis Gifford as well has a website that's has a lot of good content on it itself. If you want to kind of at least get some reading started before you get the books.
I also think that number 1, Iannetti and Moreau from the Neuromatrix to the Pain Matrix is back. And that one is huge. huge. That's the whole threat detection system and salient detection system. And another one that I really, really liked, number 11, Lagrange et al., Pain Matrix Reloaded. Awesome title, first off. And second off, like that stuff, the way it explained pain changed the way I think about pain. Those two right there are changed the way I think about everything. So those are probably the gold standards. And like I said, email me, I'll get you copies.
Zebras.
Yeah, and zebras too, yeah.
I was going to comment on something that I have found that's been really helpful for me. When I come in to see a patient, I'll visit with them a few minutes, then I'll say, do you feel a lot of tension right now, the way you're sitting? And they'll usually say yes. I say, before we talk, let's just get you comfortable, And so I'll put the block under their feet and feel it behind their back and, just kind of get them so they're feeling better, kind of get them positioned right. And then I feel like, when I'm done interviewing them, then I'll say, gee, how are you feeling? Oh, wow, this really helps. And then I feel like it's kind of opened the door for them to listen to everything else I've said, So anyway, that's just something I do that kind of.
Well, the fact that you bring that to attention, that's kind of what the repositioning stuff does. And that's a lot of what Bill talked about yesterday, was you redirected attention to something else. You made them aware, and you got them into their prefrontal cortex, that doesn't happen when they're in these states. And so if you do that, they're going to be more receptive to what you have to say. And so this is a critical piece for learning. And so you just saying that was tremendous and making them aware of things. I'll do that sometimes too when people have their arms crossed. I'll say, are you cold? And even if they're not cold, and I live in Arizona for crying out loud, it's never cold. They'll be like, no, I just, or whatever. So that oftentimes can get them to change because you brought them aware of something that's not favorable. So, anything else? Yes?
What's the story with the mask on your face?
Oh, I just like Bane, so, I wear a lot of hats, as you guys found out. I'm a Jedi, but I'm also one of the evil villains of The Dark Knight Rises, to my dad's Batman. And then I'm also a big James Bond fan, too, so I do a lot of different things, but that's why. Bill actually got me this as a gift, because I would do the talk, I would do the Bane impersonation.
Can you give us a little sample, please?
No.
What if the camera goes off?
No, I will not.